In this video I want to do an overview of some follow-on videos that I intend to do on Pistolcraft principles, or the principles of Pistolcraft, whatever. So, as you see here, I've got 3 bullet points. And we'll talk about each of them, but the point of this series, I guess you could say, is to talk about the neurological connection that we have to shooting and the strain that we're putting on ourselves. The end point here is that I think we're doing things wrong when we're teaching new shooters as an industry, and it's basically, Pat McNamara put it perfectly, it's institutional inbreeding. We're just doing the same thing without stepping back and looking at it if we're actually connecting on a level that makes sense to people, to prevent them having to waste thousands of rounds and years of trying to figure it out for themselves, because that's typically what happens. Sometimes you'll get competition shooters that find shortcuts and are able to, breach past that, but typically that takes years and they're not really good at communicating it and in a way that a lot of people can understand. So I think breaking this down and understanding how the brain and body works would be more beneficial. Now, I'm not a neuroscientist or, a neurology doctor or anything like that, but from my experience and after understanding how the brain works, learning how it correlates to a way of moving and how our bodies are pre-programmed through patterns and repetition, I think I've got a pretty good understanding of how these things, can line up or have lined up, and how we can basically overcome some of the challenges and get better, or just learn the right way to begin with. So this is really theoretical. However, this stuff has already been put into practice by me through several people, so it's worked every time so far. So anyways, first principle that I want to cover is grip. Now, I'm going to cover this in a separate video, but to give you kind of an overview, I think a lot of people underestimate the amount of complexity that we're asked, or the amount of, I think people are underestimating the complexity of a proper grip, because the proper grip is not just something that is established, it's something that's held, and it has to be held regardless. So, it's something that we have to maintain and keep stable the entire time while we're performing other tasks as well, and we have to put precision in those other tasks. So this is not something to be underestimated. You're having to establish a grip that actually is going to give good control and stability, and regardless of your stance, whether it's kneeling, prone, standing, whatever. That's its own little subject, but that's conditional. This, not necessarily. We're talking about two-handed grip, but anyways, we're talking about an aim grip, so mostly through vision, but a grip can also just be alignment, such as basically aligning it, hand-eye coordination towards the target, so you're still trying to stabilize it, and direct the gun towards the target, and hopefully direct your shots towards the target. And while you're doing that, you have to conduct a trigger pull. A trigger pull is asking this finger right here to act independently of all these other ones. So not only is it acting independently in movement, which is fine, but it's also being asked to carry a load or overcome resistance while it's doing that. How often in everyday life do you do that? Do you work the digits independently with a load of, between 8 and 12 pounds, like a double action? How often are you having to hold your hands out here and ask your body to stay completely still in this position and then pull the trigger as fast as you can? You're probably not, right? So how are we expecting that you're going to, in a course of 8 to 10 hours, in a 1 to 2 day course of learning how to basically shoot a pistol, that you're going to be able to do this? You can't. And it's not realistic for you to think that you can either, because neurologically and through physiology, we're challenging ourselves and asking a little bit too much. So this is where immersion comes in. where we have to immerse ourselves in this process with deliberate repetition. And the key here is both deliberate and repetition. That's how we establish neuroplasticity, where we can actually learn things and get them to be something that we're able to do on an autonomic level. You want to be able to shoot like a competition shooter? You need to immerse yourself in what the competition shooters are doing. And they're basically immersing themselves in the process of establishing a grip and pulling the trigger without moving the gun at varying different speeds depending on what they can. They're pulling it as fast as they can without moving the gun. And different ranges are going to demand different types of precisions, target range, distance, whatever. So anyways, that's already complex. Next one is control and follow-up. They're absolutely related, but it also goes back to here. So you need a good grip to begin with. A grip is not only something that can be done with technique, but in order to get a better grip and to maximize your control, you have to actually conduct some kind of physical training. And that could be just through repetition of this process, which is enough of a strain, which is basically conducting isometric tension, or you're using isometric exercises technically if you're establishing a proper grip that's trying to maximize control. And then control also has to do with this or this. So you're actually trying to counter the forces of the recoil, no matter how small they typically are. Some people try to absolutely destroy this principle by going with like .22 long rifle as a training round. That's not good, because here's the thing: you need this in your training, and you need to become accustomed to it, and you need to be immersed in the feeling of that so that you can apply both of these and time this. This is all about timing. This is not a bad thing to do. If you get a dud and you do this, that just means that your body already understands that it needs to control the recoil, and however much movement there is, that's how much movement they were going to be able to apply to controlling the recoil. That's just the brain doing what it does. And that's you getting a rhythm down to where you can follow up. Sometimes people try to trick their bodies with dummy rounds or whatever. There's different processes to doing this, but we just need to have a better respect for what's happening in our brain and what our body is being asked to do in order to shoot well. In order to follow these principles, we are having to undertake something that is foreign to us. And without immersing ourselves, these are going to be pretty daunting tests. How many of you guys know of anybody that shoots like once a year and is actually good at shooting? And I'm not talking about one round every 10 seconds on a bench rest, or even one round every 2 seconds. I'm talking about somebody that can actually draw and fire and stay within a good group from 7 yards, conducting like the Bill Wilson test. Not the drill, because it's not something you should drill. It's something that is used as a test. I highly doubt you're going to find anybody that's actually able to do that within any reasonable time. If you don't practice and you don't conduct these things to a point of autonomic performance, then, or near autonomic performance, or seemingly autonomic performance, then you're always going to be challenged, because it's always going to be foreign. Just like anything else, you need to practice to a level of proficiency, to a level of basically seemingly autonomic performance. So kind of like driving a car, you can almost say that you can daze off and drive. Well, you do it so much, and if you've driven the road so many times, you're basically able to almost unconsciously react to certain stimuli visually. So it's the same thing. The more you immerse yourself in it, the better you're going to get. So anyways, I hope this was interesting, and I hope you look forward to the other videos. Go ahead and leave me a comment below. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys in, these follow-on videos.